What's all this nonsense? Look at, there's like one with pretzels. And,
you got options. Yeah. That's a brownie one at the top. Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a whole thing. I could do without the picture of the guy.
Anyway. They had to have the guy.
Could have done without that.
It's not even like a sexy woman.
Make it a girl. Yeah,
it's
a sexy woman.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
her hair's a little messy. Eyes are watering.
Middle teacher.
I want to see a little makeup running, but anyways. Too far. Sorry.
Mascara.
It's good. We're good.
Maybe one eyelash kind of hanging.
I haven't said anything. I've just said
we are within YouTube's guidelines.
Hey everybody, welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. Big Ron Partlow here with Dusty Hanshaw and the producer Scott McNally. Of course, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Yes, maximum algorithms. Remember, everybody, you've got to hit those things for us to help us recover from all the missed views we had while we were gone.
God,
we had that little stutter step there, you know.
Yeah,
the little nap we had, and you know, we gotta get the push, get the momentum going. Everything's going so good. So thanks for everybody for all that. Remember, IamMutant.com. Go to IamMutant.com, get your IsoSurge, get your all in, and everyone should get on the gear. Dusty20, Big Ron 20. Use either code, save 20%. Okay, guys, what's up? What's new? What are we doing here?
Well, we're doing primarily the Q&A thing, and something that came up this week that I wanted to get into right away was the importance of quality check-in photos for you guys and myself, of course, when clients are working with us, and what you expect to see, why it's important, and all of that.
Yeah, we talked about that maybe not too long ago, but we didn't cover everything we could, and we didn't have nearly naked pictures of Ron, which we do today. So,
I had them, but anyway.
Oh, you had
them. Yeah. Well, no, hey, you guys feel free to send a few in. I just wanted to put my money where my mouth was. If I'm going to harp at people for progress pictures, I want to be able to say that, like, hey, like, here's my point. Okay, this is a progress picture that I took for my coach. This is 2006.
Yeah.
This is in the boxing room at the gym in Edmonton, hardcore gym. This was taken on like a camera.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Right.
So taken on a camera and then uploaded into a computer, pulled off the camera, attached to an email, and sent to my coach, who was Scott Abel at the time, who did a great job that year. I came in great
as shape. We can see.
Yeah.
But my point here is that everyone now has the most incredible technology in their hand. You have these 4K phones that just send the most incredible quality images. There is absolutely no excuse for your check-in photos to be crap. Like, you almost have to go out of your way to send bad photos of yourself. And it's such a waste of everyone's time. Stop doing it. Send better pictures. How good was that photo? Just find good lighting. It's not that hard.
This one's
It's not hard. And this is 2010-ish. And I would have sent this photo to Chris if it's 2010.
Okay.
And this is just in my old kitchen in my old townhouse in Edmonton. And I took all my photos there, all my morning photos. This would have been probably a night photo, judging by the amount of light.
Yeah.
But I took all my morning pictures were great there, and then all my night photos were pretty great. You could still see my glutes and hams. It's a little shadowy, but those night photos were good. Chris could see what was going on. He could see how full I was. He could see striations coming across my back and everything. So the point is, he could look at these photos and be like, oh, I know where Ron's at.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, oh, he's pretty full last night. We'll see what the morning pictures look like. You know, like he could really get a good sense of how I looked. And we've all expressed our frustration when we have a hard time getting accurate photos from clients.
Well, I think the biggest thing that drives me crazy is as an athlete for myself, I can see what I look like in the mirrors and the good lighting in the gym and all these places. And one of my houses that I lived at during my time with Chris, there was literally no good lighting in the house. It was weird lights there was no lights coming off of, like, both of my front and back porches were covered patios. Like, it was a nightmare. But that was not an excuse to not get him good pictures. So I used to drive to the gym every time he needed pictures. I had a friend who would meet me at the gym just to take my photos, and we would leave because I wanted them perfect. And it was before the age of, setting up the timers working or all those things. Like, I wanted him so good that he just did me the favor of coming with me to take the pictures. And I point that out because it's like, it blows my mind. People go, I don't have good lighting. I'm like, it's not worth a trip to the gym, or you can't do it before you train. Like, there's nowhere in the history of the world that's worth you getting me pictures to accurately help you prep for a show. And I'm telling you, it is enormously important. It's like, I want to feel like I was with someone. There you go. Exactly.
You got that.
It's this hard. It's this hard now.
Yeah.
Like,
for the audio people, Ron just showed us a small ring light.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I get to bring size into it.
The secret to my beauty.
Yeah. But no,
it's not about the size, Scott.
Exactly. I mean, his lighting is better than mine. I have a huge ring light here, but it's just,
but it doesn't work half the time.
Over here.
Got duct tape around it.
Yeah. But no, I thought it was important because I had a client send me pictures the other day, and two things happened. Number one, I opened them up and they were so bad. I actually asked him, I said, did you look at these? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, why did you send them? Because they're so bad, I can't judge what you look like. And one thing I want you all to realize, and this is a great client, and he listens to the show, so I'm not hammering him in general, but I have to point it out because I was so irritated. I wanted to say it. Like, as a coach, when someone doesn't take the time to give me good pictures, I immediately wonder what I can't see that they're also not doing well. Like, are you really taking your sets to hell and back? Are you possibly adding, when I ask you to have 200 grams of rice and it's 215, do you just eat it? Like, those questions answer me, because I would never send my coach terrible pictures, because all of his decisions are made based on those. So I really think it's important that people understand that, because if not, listen, you might as well just tell me your weight and kind of tell me in your eyes how good or not good you look, and just don't send pictures at all, and we'll wing it.
Right.
You know, because it is that bad. I mean, like Ron, you said in that night picture in your plus, is the lighting perfect? No, because it's dark. But I can see your hams, your calves on the right side. I can see your full back, so I see enough. Whereas if it was a little darker in there and I couldn't see his hamstrings at all and his glutes, I'd be like, Ron, these pictures aren't good enough. I can't see. Yeah. But you can see what he's working with to make decisions, and that's enormously important, because I've been there with clients where I see them at a show or something, and one of two things happens. They're leaner than I thought. And I'm like, oh, man, I should pump the brakes. Your pictures don't show this. Or they're fatter. And I'm like, oh, shit. We have 8 weeks of prep left and 12 weeks of work to do.
Yeah.
Because your pictures don't depict what's happening. You know what I mean? So it is really, really important. And I hope people will take the time, because I've found a ring light in a dark room set up directly in front of you. You're good.
It's fine.
Yeah. Solves a lot of problems.
You know what? I realized I made a mistake as a coach, and that is this. And I've never said this on the show before. Maybe I'm just coming to realize it now, that early on, the pictures are not quite as important. Like, as we close into a show, like those first sets of pics, I see what you look like. I know we need to get the scale moving, and it isn't as important. But then as you do move on, it gets more critical. And there comes a point that I'll say this is the way I've historically worked. There comes a point that I say, like, hey, we got to do better pictures now.
Yeah.
Like, let's really get this together. But anymore, I've been taking that to, like, just out the gate. Like, hey, and if they aren't what I want them to be, I usually tell people nowadays, like, I'll say, hey, can we, I'll give them some instructions, and then if If they try that out and it's still not right, I'll say, hey, this looks good, but next time let's try moving that camera down a little bit. Your head looks huge and your feet look tiny. You know what I mean? Or whatever we need to, or pull it back. I want to be able to see from foot to head, stuff like that. But yeah, I used to like let it ride if it wasn't as important. But there comes that point that like you really need to see all those details,
Yep. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yep. And I see what you mean about like the first, like someone who's 40 pounds overweight and isn't looking to compete. The pictures aren't as important, but you save yourself time if you set them up with good habits off the start, because then later down the road, when they do need to take better pictures, you don't have to teach them at that point, and you just save yourself the time. So I know what you mean.
Hey guys, I was just looking through the Facebook group. By the way, if anybody's not a member over there and you do Facebook groups, check out the Think Big group. James Stockton had a question for the group, and I wanted to throw it at you guys. So none of us are currently prepping anymore, but he says, when you were in prep, or generally focusing on controlling your diet, which I guess we all do that. He says, what's your guilty pleasure food? He said, personally, I've always been a donut guy. Krispy Kreme, when they are hot and fresh, are God's gift to man.
Oh, that's freaking classic.
Well, I think, right now how I eat is like basically super clean, like super, behaving bodybuilder. And then I have a little bit of ice cream every night. So it's like that little bit of ice cream I have every night just makes me feel like I don't diet at all.
Like just regular ice cream. It's not like a special low sugar.
No.
Like that.
Although I will announce that I just got a Ninja Creami. I just bought one for Emily, and I made some mutant iso surge in almond milk and egg whites with a bit of nut butter in there. And I froze that and I creamied that up with the Ninja, and it was insanely good. It was like I was eating ice cream. I couldn't believe how it turned out. So I'm like, we're one day into this, and I had my socks blown off with the first batch that I made, and it had nothing, like it was total diet formula. I wasn't trying to make it, you didn't
like drop a Butterfinger in it.
No, like if you put like real cream in it and like ice cream ingredients, you make real ice cream. Like
I never heard of this thing. What is this exactly?
Where have you been?
I'm sorry. I've been in my basement doing podcasts with you guys.
I've been in my basement.
Yeah. You didn't tell me about it. I'm waiting for you to tell me.
You gotta. Here, I'm gonna send you.
To give you an idea of how far behind you are, Scott. Yeah, we have had one, broken one, and replaced one since they've been around. So yeah, they're a thing.
I just found out about air fryers like a year and a half ago. So cut me some
That's
slack
cool.
here.
About 5 years behind on everything. That's cool.
Yeah. No, man, it blew me away. Like it was good. I stopped at my friend Aaron's house. I went to visit my buddy Aaron Jewell, old buddy of mine.
Yeah.
And he's one of those. He's like me. He's also like retired old school bodybuilder. And he goes, "Have you had a Ninja Creami?" And I'm like, "No." And he's so he opens his freezer and he pulls out one that's made with like banana iso. Yeah. And he's like, "You got to have this." And I started eating it and I ate the whole thing. I was like, "Oh man, I'm broken now."
Let me see. This is a video you sent me, huh?
Yeah. I sent the video.
Let me see if I can play the video here.
Yeah. It's super loud. It's like the loudest blender you've ever heard. You're like, "Holy jeez."
Wow.
And my neighbor calls when I use it.
Yeah.
Oh, did they? Yeah. So like a no Ninja after 10 p.m. rule at your
noise ordinance.
In your neighborhood.
Exactly.
Here we go. So you pop it off.
So no ninjas, no shooting guns after 10.
Yeah. So there's no sugar added, no fat added, I put some nut butter in there, but and it whips it up like it is like ice cream. And it's just almond milk, egg whites, and whey isolate with a bit of nut butter. That's all I put in mine. It was insane.
That's the bomb. That looks really nice.
So yeah, if you're like actually good, or you want to use like other things in your recipes, you can just make them like however crazy you want.
Yeah.
You don't have to though. I literally did water, chocolate isosurge, and peanut butter.
Oh, really? You went water. Yeah.
Water. And it was nuts. So, yeah, I mean, you really, and it wasn't that I was trying to diet or anything. I just don't have that in my house. I was like, oh, just add water, see what happens. Good to go. So, yeah, those things are awesome for sure. So, anyways, back to the question. Guilty pleasure. Scott, what is yours? We derailed for 10 minutes and don't answer questions. That's why we are terrible for pretty much.
I'm going to derail a step further because when you guys said Krispy Kremes, or he said Krispy Kremes, I thought about this thing I heard. Do you realize how many Krispy Kremes get thrown out? That like they don't sell them.
What's this?
So I guess this employee got in trouble because he posted these pictures. This is like Metro UK. I don't know what that website is. These are the Krispy Kremes that were getting thrown out. They have so many that just like I guess they don't. They want them to be fresh, right?
They have to be a certain level of freshness, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Krispy Kremes getting thrown out. I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention first. And second, I wanted to tell you guys a story.
Well, yes.
I remember dieting when I worked for the soda company. I'm conforming to everybody else in the U.S. I'm going to say Pop. Yeah, the Pop company.
Pop company.
I remember seeing this, and it wasn't even a good cookie. There was like this wafer cookie, and it was on the floor out of the package. And it was just sitting there, grocery store, right out on the floor. And it was sitting there, and I was very far into the diet. And now there was no moment that I was actually going to pick it up and eat it. But the thought that came to my head was, I bet if I did, it would taste just as good as any other cookie. There'd be nothing wrong with that.
And I bet you'd be okay.
And I bet I'd be okay. Like I literally had that thought, like, hey, I bet that would taste just as good. There'd be nothing wrong with it.
And then there's a little bit of your brain that goes, and because it's off the ground, it's technically not really like
it's not like I bought it
anymore.
Yeah, it's not like I paid for it.
Like real calories. It's almost just like incidental calories that you ingest just by moving moving through the world.
That's kind of where my head was. You know what I mean? Like, that wouldn't count. It didn't pack it. I didn't intentionally purchase it.
Yeah,
I love that your guilty pleasure is something you didn't eat.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of.
He has guilt for thinking about eating a cookie.
It was a moment he'll never forget.
He's like,
it's the closest he came in his life to eating garbage.
He had to tell somebody. Yeah, if he was religious, he would have told his pastor about it. Like, I got to talk to you.
So I do this thing.
I almost cheated on your wife. No, my diet.
No, it was on the ground. Yeah.
Here's a little more. Here's a little more of what I've done. So here's the reality of it. So I like variety. So there's no single one thing. I like the freedom of knowing that I'm going to get to eat something, that's off plan, and it's going to be something. It's got to be at some level of constraint size wise. I can't go out and get like an entire sheet cake, right? But I'd go to the grocery store, especially like in the middle of summer when it's hot. You're probably on a bunch of Clen and everything else, and it's nice and cool in there. Walking through the freezer aisles.
On Clen.
Like three.
We're all doing summer.
Yeah. I'm talking contest prep. So you're all uncomfortable.
I thought that was just something you did because it was July.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
July's for Clen. July's for Clen. I found this cupcake one time, and it was it had like this blue frosting on it, and they had it look like who was the blue guy from Sesame Street? The Grover?
Grover, yeah.
No. It was Cookie Monster.
Cookie Monster.
It was Cookie Monster. Yeah. So they had Cookie Monster on there, and not only did you get the cupcake, out of his mouth they had a little Oreo cookie sticking out of it. And it was like this really deep blue frosting. You could see it from across the room. So that was my snack. That was my cheat meal, that treat that I had. And here's the part that really got me. I pooped blue for 2 days after that. Like literally,
wow.
There was so much food coloring in that like the water turned like a tint of blue. I was like, wow,
that's amazing.
That can't be good for me. But I thought to myself, you know what? One day I'm going to tell that story in front of a lot of people on a podcast.
That's hilarious.
We found the day. It was today. Good to know.
That's funny.
Man. All right, so
little Cookie Monster.
First off, I love the fact that because you had already told the story about finding a cookie on the ground.
Oh, I'm going all in.
So one day I found a cupcake. And I'm like, why does he find things all the time?
Well,
then
the cupcake
you meant in a store.
It wasn't like on the side of the road or something.
Your lead had me confused. I'm like, here we go again. Only this time he ate it.
Yeah. I'm going all in. I'm going all in today, guys.
Yes. No. Here's what's funny, and Ron knows this, and he's actually the same. So it's terrible. Is my guilty pleasure is actually really simple, which is after a show, dead of off season, retired. If I go to dinner, all I want to eat is steak and rice. That's what I'm going to order. Doesn't matter where we go. I'm actually irritated if they don't have rice on the menu as an option to switch for what I have. But the guilty pleasure is if they have a small pizza or flatbread, that comes first every single time. You just order the flatbread, the pizza, whatever type you want. That's your warm up. And then you find yourself in an unmeasured steak with rice. And I usually ask for double rice because they'll usually throw it down for you. And you're good to go. But yeah, it is the pizza warm up that gets it going. You know,
I like to think I have something to do with that.
Yeah, it's just
like there's other things that have come out of my mouth where Dusty said, "Oh, you're becoming me," and then there's a couple things where Dusty's like, "I really like a good flatbread before my steak." I'm like, I think I had something to do with that.
I think I might have started that. Yeah,
I think that might have been my contribution.
We hang out at Earl's, and there it was.
Yeah, something like that.
But those are the gems. But as far as like a bad thing, air quote, my favorite dessert is carrot cake, but not any carrot cake. It has to be awesome. And there's actually a place in Arizona that I used to go pick it up after a prep and just bring it home. I'd go to a high-end steakhouse and buy just the carrot cake.
Ooh, right.
But to give you an idea, I brought it home one night, and before I ate the entire thing, I was like, should probably weigh this.
Yeah.
And it was just shy of 2 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And I mean, I was like, no one can eat this except for me. And then I did.
Yeah.
So
like
phenomenal. I wish I had I literally was about to like scrounge through old pictures to find it because it's, you know, I mean, it literally is like that tall, you know?
Yeah. Did they have like the cream cheese frosting on it?
Oh, that's the only reason you eat it.
Yeah.
It's all a lie just to transport cream cheese frosting to your mouth. The rest is nonsense. I know this.
I think at this stage, so there's no shows like coming up next week, so we can talk about these things openly. But I feel like too far into the season, we need to get it out of our systems now because people will have to shut us off. You know, if we're talking cream cheese
got
frosting
people starting
in July.
diets right about now too. Yeah. So
it's not everybody though. That's not
all
everybody.
fun and games
because Nikki will request to make desserts or dinners at the house all the time right now.
Oh, she's one of those people, huh?
Yeah. Yes. So she's like, I'm going to make you cookies. I'm going to do this. Like I told her, tell the Arnold I wanted to not eat any more like home meals.
Okay.
And like, it was the first time in our entire relationship, like, I thought she was a little mad at me. I was like,
right.
I'm like, that's her. She's like, well, what am I going to make? I'm like, I don't know. Make it for the other guy. Shit.
Yeah. How about this one? Nathan Scott had another one over at the group. Let me actually screen cap it here. So first of all, he says, I'm in the Army and I'm looking for a way to still hit my protein goal while in the field for a month at a time. I've been dehydrating steak into jerky, and that's probably what my plan is going to be. My question is, would eating 5 meals of jerky for a month, would that be bad? He says, in my head, it's just steak.
Well, technically, it's just steak. Like, I mean, unless he runs into some kind of like issue for another reason, like, you know, I don't know. I mean, can you make it out of other meat too? Can he do some turkey jerky so it doesn't get just completely fried on steak? You know, that's where I'd be. That'd be my first concern.
My first concern would be jaw health from chewing.
Yeah. Make sure you're flossing. Make sure you don't run out of floss. Yeah.
He's gonna have some like a Frank in there. McGrath, like jaw muscle back here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do anything. You can do anything for a month.
Yeah, bring protein powder with you, right?
Yeah, get some whey iso. Yeah, do your thing.
Yeah, I would definitely do protein powder over 5. Like, because you got to remember, this is meals.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to figure out the macros of jerky since it's cooked down so far. That's back to our topic of weighed before or after cooked. Well, this is beyond
jerky's got its own. Jerky
You're not
has
eat
its own
10
ratios,
ounces of jerky.
No, you only need a few.
Yeah,
it's really dense. I forget what the percentage is, but it's compact. You don't have to eat a ton of jerky to get 40 grams of protein.
And the sodium, I'd watch out for that. Since he's making it himself,
well, he won't need to add salt to his meals.
Yeah, right.
He won't need a salt shaker if he's eating jerky. Yeah. Well, I guess he's making it, so he can determine how much salt he puts on it. But
I've talked to guys before who have been deployed, and that they're trying to do. I've talked to guys that were in like Iraq and stuff, and people who were in places where they're like, "Hey, I can get anything I want at the pharmacy, but I can't get good quality protein," and they'd be in
I can't eat.
Right. Yeah. They'd be like in some country where I remember one guy was telling me that like the merchants in town had like basically fake protein, that they would break it down with other things to try to, scam the US soldiers and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But I wonder what he has too. I'm sure there's probably going to be some solid food there, egg whites. But I think though, a lot of that stuff, the food they prepare is so calorie dense, and you're probably going to need more calories too. I'm guessing if you're out in the field, So I know for myself, if I'm traveling, I'm probably, even if I had all my protein with me, I feel like I'm always at some level under eating. So if I were to have any kind of extra food, it might not be clean, it might not be perfect, but just to get enough in, I might push that up with like, obviously he's not doing a burger, but traveling like with a burger or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I almost always lose weight traveling.
Yeah.
So.
Dusty, did you have some stuff?
Oh, yes, I have more. A lot of the stuff that I pulled through here were just things that I could kind of run through. So first one that I had was when you guys are prepping someone for a contest and you have zero care of their enjoyment of life. This is about results. What is it that you guys see or look for that makes you decide that they need a higher day or a cheat meal? When I say higher day, higher calories. And that's twofold. One, just because it's a good question, but two, because obviously Ron and I don't know how early you started, Scott, but like cheat meals weren't a thing when I started bodybuilding. Like you started a prep and it only got worse and then it ended. Like there was no reprieve ever. So I was just curious how you guys go about that. And I pointed out not being funny, but the life part, because for everyday clients, like I ask them to have meals because I want them to have a life. And there's a way to maintain both. But when you're in prep for 20 weeks or whatever it is, I don't really care if your life is great. My job is to make sure you come in nasty and win.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do?
Well, I think before you need a high day or a cheat meal, whatever, like there's, kind of the same strategy essentially. You have to be quite lean. Like if you gotta have veins popping and striations coming out in certain muscle groups, and you have to have also made a lot of progress. Like if you start dieting at 240 and you're 232, you do not need any sort of refeed at all. Like let's you start dieting at 240, let's see under 220. Like let's get you down. Like are you radically different looking than you were 20 pounds ago? Okay, you might, how's your performance now? How's your strength? How's your pumps? All that stuff should be good. I mean, this is all assuming you set the diet up with half a brain to begin with. But if like with most people, the first half of their diet, they have, with me, typically the first half, there's nothing. All that stuff comes in the last half when they start getting really lean and we start like sort of throttling up and down a little more and like playing with carbs more. And the more, there's a lot more adjustments near the end, So yeah, I would say most people don't need one. And, you should have made quite a bit of progress before you need one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. The rest performance based.
I would say, so it might be different for somebody who's competing versus a non-competitor.
This is somebody, competitors.
Okay. Yeah, competitor.
Okay. I'm saying competitor. Yeah.
I just was thinking coaching wise. So just in general. For a competitor, we're going to do whatever it takes first. And it depends on the person. There's a real rare person that I've worked with who just burns through everything. And he might start getting a cheat meal like the second or third week. And we almost use it as part of the plan. Like, hey, there's the day we're going to load back up, fuel back up. And we might be able to ride that right into the show, I'm going to say you're more average person. I'm with you, Ron, that you're just going to have to wait. And the other thing is that I probably don't want to have a cheat meal as your loading meal into a show. We're probably going to want to actually do it in some sort of clean, controlled fashion. So what I try to explain to people is every time we do some type of a load or a high day or whatever, that we're kind of testing out how you respond. So I'm going to have somebody check in, let's say it's Monday and we're working toward a depletion, and then we're probably going to plan a high day around Friday or something like that. And I'll say, hey, why don't you check back in on Thursday, right? Because if I know him well enough and I know we're probably going to do it Friday, I might want to see him a little sooner than that. Say, let me see what you look like on Thursday. And let's figure we're still 10, 12, whatever weeks out. And then I say, okay, yeah, let's do this high day tomorrow. And then let's check in the next day. And then we can kind of get an idea of, well, okay, how did your body respond to those foods? And this is something that if you're as a coach with or as an athlete with your coach, you guys are kind of in this constant conversation of knowing what your body's going to do, so that when we do get to the show, it's not a surprise. We're just going to start throwing random stuff at you. People eat muffins. You know what I mean? Like for a show, let's do that. Let's figure it out so that the load is actually calculated, and it's just going to be like another day on the job then, basically, by the time we actually get to the contest. Granted, water's going to be different, but we'll have a much better idea.
What do you guys think about, is there a downside? Because like for me, one thing I've discovered with clients is they start like looking like, so when are we going to have a high day? Like, when are we going to have a high day? Like they're wondering. And I feel like, when I was competing, and I mean, I'm really happy that now that's happening in my house. Like Nikki does not care. She wants to win.
Yeah.
That's it. And I really think more people, by coaches' faults in some ways, fall into the habit of starting to look for it because we'll probably have a treat meal soon or whatever. And I really don't think you should implement them to the point where clients are looking forward to them because, again, it's a 20-week prep. If you never eat out for 20 weeks and you come in at your best, who cares? Like, and when you're really in shape, when Aceto calls and says, hey, today we're adding 400 grams of rice to your normal day, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
You don't care that it's not a cheeseburger. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I find that there's and again, it's not for everyone, but do you guys think that there are points where because it's become so popular in bodybuilding, it's a negative?
Yeah, well, there are some people that psychologically are terrible at all of this. They might be physically gifted at bodybuilding, but they're psychologically just so terrible with food, and it's such a hard battle for them constantly in every direction. And then, they get with a coach that uses a lot of cheat meals, and I've seen like the worst of the worst, you know what I mean? Some people just cannot handle that stuff. Like I know guys that I've had clients who are like, hey, I got shredded a few times, like eating those little mini rice cakes post-workout. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I kept those in my diet right up to a contest a few times, and I was in really great shape. And I've had clients go, hey, can we take those out? I can't have them in my house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. You just can't. They're like, oh, I can't stay. If I open a bag, I eat the whole thing. I'm like, oh, okay. That's just weird to me. Like, it just never occurred to me. I weighed them all, know? So
I'm with you. Sometimes you go, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So you're just like, oh, okay. I guess we'll take those out and we'll use just, whatever plain rice if you want.
It's good that they know that too, though. As much as I joke, I've had that with peanut butter, and someone will go, I hate Evu. Can you just use that? And I'm like, sure. We'll use extra virgin olive oil. Like, same thing for me. So fine. You know what I mean? And they'll just say it. They're like, dude, if you ask me to have 32 grams of peanut butter, we have a problem. I'm like, great. And I'm glad that they tell me that, because it's good to know your weaknesses, you know. But I'm like you, Ron. I'm like, that would not. The only issue I had with peanut butter back in the day was it was a pain in the ass to get the measurement.
Yeah.
I was like, this sucks. Trying to get it just right.
I don't trust people with peanut butter. Yeah, I don't trust people with peanut butter either. I used to measure it by the tablespoon. And I just say, like, hey, 1 level tablespoon.
84 grams of peanut butter is 1 tablespoon.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I'm holding my weight really well on this low-calorie diet.
Yeah.
So, but then you see their peanut butter consumption. You're like, oh, geez.
Go through, 3 jars a week, something like that. Yeah. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
That's why I do it in grams. I'm like, no.
I switched to that too.
Weigh the spoon first. Now weigh the spoon with it on there. There you go.
Right.
That's funny.
Definitely.
I'm glad you guys said that about it, because I do think it's a huge I think that the mental side can actually weaken people who are strong if they start wanting that, you know. I just prefer, and again, not that it's bad to have. I never cared. Chris used to use them, but I honestly did not care. And if anything, I would be irritated because you're so hungry that when he's like, go have a double cheeseburger, I'd go in there and I would eat it and not even know I ate it and walk out. Because it takes like 3 seconds. I'm starving to death. I didn't taste it. And it did nothing to my energy levels or anything. So it was literally like, the only difference to me, because I was cheap, was I'm like, that was $18. That sucks.
Yeah. You really don't realize the the psychological drive that food can be. Even if you have like a healthy relationship to food, and if you start bodybuilding like in a serious level,
you'll ruin that.
you figure it out. Like, you really figure out just how much food has that importance. You know, it's in everything we do. You know, it's like you go out on a date. What are you going to do? You're going to go out to eat. We're going to celebrate a birthday. What are we going to do? We're going to have cake. Just Christmas. What are we going to do? We're going to get together and we're going to eat. So you take that away. And then people are like, oh man, you know, you start figuring that out. You start figuring it out pretty quick. But
agreed.
I was going to ask you, Dusty, on that note, because we were asked a little while ago, Ron, you talked about trying to hold on to every freaking rep that you could when you were dieting. And Dusty, your strength was such an important factor with DC training. And we did that whole DC training progressive overload. Well, not really DC, but it was like the progressive overload special edition episode. People freaking loved that, by the way. How did that play out in a diet phase? Because you were so into chasing progression in one way or another. How did that work out as like you were in a calorie deficit and getting weaker?
This part sucks for podcasts because I can't use this for my clients. I never got weaker. I got stronger. I'd be like, Dante would literally, because I'd be posting videos. He's like, you got to back down. I'd be 4 weeks out. I'm like, I pulled 720 today. He's like, don't do that. And the reason is it's not something like superhuman. So I don't want people like, oh, wow, whatever. It's because back again, I was on the most gear.
That's what I was
during
thinking.
That time period.
Yeah.
Because my off seasons, like and people would always argue, oh, no, you don't. I did very little, not none, not just TRT, but very little in the off seasons. So here I am, the closer I got to the show, the more things I was taking, you know, plus my entire life was flawless around bodybuilding. I can't stress that enough for most people is I ate at the same time. I probably chewed every bite the same time. I never killed myself during a prep, only in the off season. I did that once. You know, it's a scenario where I really think that was the difference. And when I went to the gym, it never even occurred to me to get weaker. And I think that is where most people get weaker, because I've had clients, you'll start they're 16% body fat. You're a week and a half in. They're like, yeah, I'm feeling the diet low, so the strength's down. I'm like, no, you're not, fatty. No, you're not. You decided you're weaker. And you have to get that out of your head. Plus, you know, and Ron and I were the same with this. I did no cardio in the off season. So my cardiovascular condition was up. My food was perfect. My sleep was what it was, which was always terrible, but it was something I focused on. My routine before the gym was perfect. Everything was lined up to be great. So the only thing removed was food. And I think that that's why, because even now, it's amazing to me how much wind affects sets. People don't think of that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I was, I ran out of strength. I'm like, nah, I watched you. You ran out of wind. That was a set of 12. And at 10, you were gassed, and it became an oxygen issue more than a strength issue. So, yeah, for me, that was not a thing, but it definitely, in hindsight, made me look at how much better my training could have been if I'd have been that obsessive with all those other things in the off season. Because I was good, but I mean, of my entire career, there was only 2 years that I could say I literally did not make a mistake for 365 days. Like, I ate what Chris told me, and those are the 2 years that I did the best. And that's something I press to people. I'm like, I'm not saying to not have balance, but I can tell you when I had no balance is when I got my best results. So what do you want to do?
I like that answer. And after you said the gear thing, that made total sense. Like, as you were saying it, I was like, oh, I bet that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really simple. It's, and it's funny. And I can say this now because everybody knows I've mentioned that I started taking some things just for fun while Nikki was in prep, and I haven't in years. And Ron, you would have this now too. You start to downplay what gear does when you're doing it all the time. And you're not trying to lie. Right. It's just, you're kind of used to it. And so having not touched over TRT for like 3 years and then like more than doubling it. I remember I told Nikki, I'm like, this is amazing. I walk in the gym and not even just the strength and lifting. Like when I walk in the gym and I'm chatting with the front desk people and our daughter works there and we walk around and then I look at a bar and my mind goes, shoo. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's what this does. That's funny. And because I'm so far removed from it, I was like, I literally told her, I was like, I had no idea that this stuff is this impressive.
That's funny.
Now I see why people but again, if I ran it for, on and off for 2 years, 3 years, I would get back to you should be good either way. It's like, you should, but it's definitely better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely an interesting thing. And in retrospect, when you've been removed, I'm like, I forgot. That's all it was. I just forgot.
Oh yeah, it works.
For those who are wondering, never mind. It's definitely pretty interesting.
Yeah. I imagine I've joked with some of the guys at the gym, like, how long would it take me to put on 30 pounds if I really wanted to? Probably be pretty quick.
It would be insane.
I accidentally I'll put like 6 pounds on just fullness if I just have too many cheat meals in a week. Like the other day,
if Ron and I were to hang out for a week, he'd be screwed.
I had some Subway cookies the other day, and I went to the gym to train chest and biceps. Or whatever it was, shoulders and triceps. That's what it was. And I probably had 5 people at the gym go, "What did you eat?" They're like, "You look like crazy full today." I'm like, "Oh, I had Subway cookies." Like, it was like hilarious. It was just multiple people.
Have you guys tried the new Subway cookie, like the foot-long cookie they have?
No, I haven't had one of those. That's what they asked me. Oh, do you eat the big ones?
You got it. Yeah. I haven't had one either. Now I'm like, I haven't been to Subway in like a decade, but I might have to make a trip.
That's funny.
I'm like, I gotta look. Scott's Googling. He doesn't even know this is a thing.
I gotta see what this thing looks like.
Where have you been? You really don't watch sports.
I don't watch. No, yeah. So, okay, here's the picture right now. Ooh.
Right? That's a foot long.
I need that.
That's a proper measurement, ladies. I'm sure of it.
That's what they tell you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. She's on 8 inches. But anyways.
What's all this nonsense? Look at, there's like one with pretzels. And,
you got options. Yeah. That's a brownie one at the top. Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a whole thing. I could do without the picture of the guy.
Anyway. They had to have the guy.
Could have done without that.
It would have been like a sexy woman.
Make it a girl. Yeah,
it's a
sexy woman.
Exactly.
Like
her hair's a little messy. Eyes are watering.
Teacher.
I want to see a little makeup running. But anyways. Too far. Sorry.
Mascara.
It's good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Maybe one eyelash kind of hanging.
I haven't said anything. I've just said
we are
things.
within YouTube's guidelines.
I've got like 1 foot definitely over that line currently.
You're heading that way.
I feel really bad for taking part for some reason. I feel bad.
Ron by default just jumps in. He's like, you forgot about
to it. And then I was like, it was too much. Yeah.
Why is there a hand also in this picture behind her head? Never mind.
Yeah. This gets worse.
Sorry.
Mr. Hanshaw, we'd like to speak to you about your marketing. I don't know if this was thought out. Okay.
So back on track for another question for you guys. Again, these are prep questions for clients.
Okay.
At what point do you start asking for more pictures? Because I know I took it off of Chris eventually over time, but like it is pretty funny. It's like, checking every 7 days, checking every 2. Okay, checking every 2 hours. I mean, well, typically it's once a week. And then when you get into like, I don't know, what's real prep? Like 14 weeks, 12 weeks out, you start, I don't know, somewhere in there maybe in the teens somewhere, you get twice a week, and then it just depends. Like some people, it just nothing. They just change every set of photos and they just, 2 pounds, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 2 pounds, 1.5, 2 pounds, 1.5, 2 pounds. It's just, and then other people, it's like, well, send me, maybe we'll do, let's do 3 sets a week or 4 sets a week. Or I remember one time, my weight stopped moving. It was the first time I worked with Chris, 2010. My weight stopped moving and we were 6 weeks out and I was getting a little bit like, I need to change here. He hasn't changed anything. And I was starting to worry that maybe I wasn't ahead, I was like, and then so I just said to him, like, what do you want to do? And he goes, let's do pictures every single day. And I was like, we'll just go right to that. And then we just did pictures every single day for the last 6 weeks, all the way to the show. Yep. And I wound up like, in really great shape. It was one of my best ever looks. First time I worked with Chris. And I was like, he was like, everything was going really good. And then it just stopped going good. So it's just pictures every day. We had the same thing, but it was actually reverse where my lowest weight during prep was a certain number of weeks out. I don't remember what it was. And my stage weight was 10 pounds above that. And again, that's back to the hormonal side. And we had, bumped growth up and things. But I remember like we started taking pictures often because we didn't discuss it. But your head, even though the scale isn't everything, you kind of it's going the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but you look at the pictures and you're like, but I'm getting harder, so it's fine. But it's definitely a mental mess when you see that because you're like, I remember Chris finally, he texted me one day. He goes, "You are awesome at getting sliced, but you suck at losing weight." I was like, well, that's a win.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott? Like, how do you? I know it's hard to answer because it is dependent. But I mean, do you base it on? Is it ever out of? I guess here I'll just word it for myself. Sometimes I do it because I don't want things to go too far. Like someone's really cranking along, they're really losing.
That too.
And I'm like, well, if I let them go for 4 days, we might go too far.
Yeah, or I'll ask for weight every day. I'll say weight every morning. Your weight every morning. Yeah.
Because they'll start clicking and you realize, like, I mean, you don't want to be 5 days into it. Like, what was one day? Because, Ron, you asked us the other day. Ron LeCage just asked for, like, a in person. Like, what are you seeing? And I'm like, things are definitely better. Not life-changing, but better. And then, like, 2 days passed. I was like, a lot has happened. Yeah. A lot has taken place. And then he'll see the pictures. And it was funny because the other day she sent pictures Sunday or whatever. And usually I don't really say anything because you look fine. You look the way you're supposed to, And we walked in. I'm like, ab and thigh looks stupid, and the rear double is way better. And that was all I said. And then I just ate my breakfast. And then I was like, what did Ron say? She goes, ab and thigh is way better, and rear double is way better. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. How far out is she now?
8 weeks.
Yeah,
7.5. Yeah,
7.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's getting fun now. It's the point where I'm like, every day I'm like, oh, that wasn't there yesterday. And we have a lot. I mean, there's still plenty to do. It's not like she's ready by any stretch, but it's just, it's that daily fun part where you're like, oh, that's almost grainy in the shoulder today. Okay.
Yeah. Starting to get that look.
So here's what I would say. When do I start to have people check in more frequently? So like you guys, and it's pretty much, I think my answer is the same, but I'll try to say it in a little bit of a different way. That, we start out every week, right? Or somewhere close to that. And then as we get closer, there's going to be whatever we need to do with the diet is probably going to determine that, as you're depleting, I probably want to make, like you said, Dusty, I don't want to wait too long to fill back out, for instance. So I might say, I know that we're going to probably need to fill you out by this weekend, but let's see you a couple days before that. That's where it would start. And then maybe from there we start going to every 5 days, every 5 days. And then after you fill back out, so then it becomes twice a week, and then it just kind of progresses from there. And I'm not sure where it's at, but I usually have people, it's usually around like that 7-8 week period. I have people send all their check-ins on email, and it's not time sensitive. Any changes that we're going to do, you're going to apply tomorrow. And so I'll do podcasting stuff in the morning, and then I get back to those people in the afternoon. But anything beyond that, if you're getting closer, if you're 8 weeks out, then we need to start going to text. And then I have people start texting their pictures in the morning so I can get back to them right away. You know what I mean? But I don't have everybody do that year round, texting me pictures, right? It's too much for me to handle. You know what I'm saying? Just like running your life based off of somebody else's eating schedule. So by the time they're done with the show, then I'm like, oh man, this is weird because I'm not getting all those texts that I was used to. Morning? Yeah, exactly.
I do all email because I like to have my little tracking of the answer in the correspondence.
Oh yeah.
But that is my morning routine is to go through and who's how far out, and those get answered first.
I still email them back too. I'll have them text me the pictures. Yeah. And then that way I see it, and then I do like a PDF. So then I'm like, all right, email sent or whatever, diet sent. And then they check that and grab it or whatever.
I have a funny story to tell you guys about like my first big show when I had a prep coach. Ron might know this, but so we start like coming to the end and trying to get real nasty. So this was really, really old school. So I was eating 6 meals a day. 5 of them were tilapia and 1 was salmon.
Okay.
And so he says to me, I come in, I see him one day, and he goes, all right, listen, we're gonna deplete you really hard. He's like, can you tomorrow just have the tilapia for the 5 meals and just have the salmon, no greens? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I do it. I come in the next day and he has me pose and, can you do another day? And I'm like, sure. So this goes on every day. And finally after my 5th day of doing just meat, and I mean, I'm definitely in pain. And like I said, this is my first time. So it was harder than I'm used to.
Oh yeah.
And, he goes, all right, tomorrow we're going to start filling back up. So let's, he adds the carbs back in. And I said, hey, Jay, I'm not questioning you. I go, but I can't really tell. I said, what was it you were looking for to see change in these 5 days that you finally saw today?
Like each day, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously there was a progression. He goes, oh, nothing. He goes, I knew the whole time we were doing 5, but I knew I couldn't ask you for that up front. I was like,
yeah.
He goes, it would be way too hard to tell you I needed 5 days like this, so I just asked you to do them one at a time. I'm like, you prick.
That's funny. He gave you the secret,
it made
though.
Sense, yeah.
He gave you the secret.
But like Ron said just a few minutes ago, like you can do anything for a day.
Yeah.
So it is easy when you're like, I just got to get through today.
Yep.
And then tomorrow, and then also you're a week and a half out. So when he asks for one more tomorrow, you're like, it's only one.
Right.
I can do this. Like, I'm not dying. You know what I mean? So I learned a lot from that prep just because of the mindset, because you really realize like the amount of people that I've heard through other coaches and stuff are like, I can't. And I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't? Like, you can't not eat for a day less calories. I mean, I don't think that most of us who are fortunate enough to do this realize that our brutal diets are more food than a lot of people ever see in a day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the bottom line that I tried to always go back to. Like I would always remind myself of that. Like every time things got really hairy with like, you know, just like losing your mind, being hungry and stuff, I would just try to remember, like, you know, look at the stats of how many people don't eat breakfast and how many people can't afford to, like, you know, buy meat from the supermarket at all. And, you know, percentage of the population that went without eating meat for, you know, more than 3 days on the planet at a time, you know, like it's like,
it's
you
staggering.
just realize, you're just like, your torturous hobby is such a privilege.
Right.
You know?
Right, exactly.
And it's just try to remind yourself of that.
You're dying and telling people you're dying, but you're also eating 60 ounces of meat a day.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
one thing I always remember too is I've mentioned before how I saw, like, one year Mike Menser, like an old Mike Menser interview got reprinted, and he was talking about his diet for the Olympia. And it was the 1980 Olympia where, like, he arguably looked his best, I guess, one of Mike Menser's best looks. And some people thought he should have won, you know, there was that controversy and all that. But his diet to get lean real quick, because he did a keto diet, he would just drop into like hard ketosis and just melt fat off. It was just, he had absolutely no fear, and his calories would be really low, and he would just plummet into it, no fear. And he would hold his strength because of how he trained. It wasn't crazy high volume. So he wasn't like totally, you know, he wasn't like frying himself into oblivion. He was just training really hard with low volume. And I just would remember, like, well, Mike Menser used to go down to like 800 calories. So my 2000 calories is a joke.
right.
Like, and I would just remember that. I'd be like, I'm still eating, like, you know, over twice as much as Mike Menser used to diet on. I'm like, I'm just gonna suffer through this, you know, and just try to remind yourself of something worse. Find some perspective to take where it makes it seem easy.
Yeah.
I told you that was the the aceto effect when I did that year, and he told me about having stage 4 cancer. And he explained this, Scott, where he said, he goes, I would never be in a point in my life that I would have the nerve to think of doing two things at once. So he's like, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd say, I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
And after I spend enough time to convince myself to go do that, I go to the bathroom, and then I would pee. And he goes, if I had the energy while in the bathroom, I would then decide if I could brush my teeth. But I would never say I need to go to the bathroom, pee, and brush my teeth, because that's too much. It's too much to ask.
I didn't realize he was that bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He beat like a cancer you can't beat. Like he's supposed to.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I looked it up at the time, so don't kill me, internet. But it was like 14% of people who have it survive.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a melanoma, a bad melanoma.
Okay.
And he said the first day he did interferon, which was like the what's it called? Chemo drug.
Yeah.
The first day he did his interferon treatment, he went home and he just collapsed on the couch, and he was like, oh my God, this drug's going to kill me.
Wow.
Yep.
And he said that was just so brutal. Yeah. But
So
he used to say, well, it's not stage 4.
Yeah. So that became my prep thing, Scott.
Yeah.
Was he would ask how I felt. So when he told me that story, we were in my nastiest prep of my career. And he said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. So he told me that story. And he said, I don't want you to think further than an hour in advance, because he knew I had 5 retail stores and I was busy. He's like, it's too much. He's like, so when you wake up 8 a.m, you're allowed to think about what you need to do between now and 9. And
that is such good coaching.
9 to 10. And so I was like, okay, cool. And it was brutal. I mean, it was hard, but I remember every time he'd ask, how are you feeling? I'd go, it's not stage 4. And he'd just laugh.
That is such good coaching too, that he knew that would connect to you. And he knew that you would probably get ahead of yourself otherwise, you know, worrying about everything you had to do. Yeah,
it's a lot. I mean, I think people need to, it's why it's important to have a better feel for who your clients are. And he knew that how busy I was and stubborn. Yeah. So it's important to kind of slow some people down, and other people need a boot in the ass.
Yeah.
but it was definitely awesome. And that was my first, perspective shift in my life. Cause you're like, whoa, like even to this day, as I tell the story, I think like, I don't think about peeing and brushing my teeth and like anything. Like, are you kidding me? And when you break it down, you're like, that's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't imagine being so tired that, he said there's times it would take 30 minutes while having to go to the bathroom to convince himself to go do it because he was that tired.
Yeah.
So that's also why he lives the way he does and why he and I connect the way we do, especially after me, trying to die, is he gets it. Like there's not time for sleeping 8 hours a day and this shit. When you realize how short life is, you're like, no. I'm not wasting 8 hours a day of sleep. It's garbage. I would never do that.
That's I'd get your sleep. You need sleep to progress, guys.
Yeah.
So there's the balance.
Yeah.
There's the balance.
Yeah.
You know what? I wanted to add one thing because you guys you were asking like, how often or when do you increase frequency? And there was another side to that too. Do you guys ever have people continue to check in more frequently, even when there's nothing that like you know that they're on a good track? You don't have to do anything. There's a part of me, I just want to start seeing them more frequently. And I was going to say that the way I describe it is being the passenger in a car. And there's a difference between just going for a ride and navigating. And that you want to know like where you're at all times. And you want to know, like you want to be able to just watch their body at a certain point. You see it every day. And even if you aren't going to have to make any changes, there's just one picture, one check-in is like a moment in time. But when you start seeing them every day, there's this unconscious processing that goes on where you're not even saying like, oh, you're looking a little bit better here than you were there. You just start to get to know their bodies better by watching the movement of the day to day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I could think of 2 clients that I have who go out of their way to update me like clockwork all off season.
Yeah.
And they're like the most consistent. A lot of people, they don't even want coaching in the off season, right? Like they just want coaching for prep and then, they're saving their money or they're doing other things or whatever. And then I can think of 2 guys that, they just keep sending me their updates and they have the best off seasons. They're the guys who have gotten the biggest and the most size on and almost like just having me to send their photos to is like a good, like, goal marker for them every week or
accountability
or whatever, accountability. And then I just sit back and the videos just keep getting better and they just keep getting heavier and stronger and just, keep doing what you're doing. It's just that reassurance, because then I think without that, maybe they will like, I'm going to try something new.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to saw this new video about this thing, but when they're checking in with me and I just keep saying, hey man, this is ridiculous off season. Like let's just keep this going. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to change anything, Yeah. So it's what you don't do sometimes.
It's crazy that people don't do that. Like almost all of my clients are year round because they want to see the change. And that's how I was. Like Chris and I never stopped. We would maybe go a little longer. But I paid up front for the year, so it didn't affect me. But with my clients, I want every 5 days because I also just want to touch base. Like you said, it's not about, listen, you're in the off season. We're probably fine. Like you're not going to look drastically different, but I do want to just make sure we're communicating. How's the strength? I always will say, I know I'm a broken record, but I swear I'm actually doing my job. How was the strength this week?
Yeah.
Are the reps up, and it sounds funny because it sounds like you just keep saying the same thing, but like, no, I really need to know, because that's a progression sign.
It's one of the most important things.
How's the recovery? I will remind them all the time. I always say this, but I'm going to say it again. Training is the biggest focus we have. How is it going? So that stuff is enormous. But I always liked it too, just because, like you said, Scott, it's part of what I do, and it makes sure like I'm not missing. Because even when you were very obsessive, like when I'm paying you $250, $300 a month, I am not missing meals. I'm not going to pay you, and then that's like going to a restaurant, ordering a meal, paying, and walking out. You forgot to eat it. Like, but it is easy to let it slip away here and there when you're not doing that. And sometimes the financial accountability alone keeps you locked in. And that's probably why, like you said, Ron, a lot of your clients that stay get the best results. It's not that the other people aren't committed. It's just you don't really realize, like, for the longest time, I used to write down what I ate every day just to make sure I never had to write down 5 meals when they're supposed to be 7.
Right.
It just kept me obsessive because I caught myself at one point where I was like, I had a good week of eating. And I started thinking back and I was like, I missed 5 meals this week. But I thought I was doing well. And I didn't catch it until my weight stalled. And I'm looking, I'm like, why am I not changing? I've been doing good. And then you start really thinking, I'm like, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've been missing 4 or 5 meals a week. I was eating 7 at a time for weeks. Well, no wonder I'm not changing. And that's like you tell a client when I was like, whoa, something should change. Like, yeah, what should change? You should follow the fucking plan.
Yeah.
So that's why at that point in my career, I started writing down my own meals like I was a 2-year-old and just making sure there it is. And so I had pages and pages of the same day every day.
Yeah. I have a whole bunch of log books that just all look identical too. It's ridiculous. So,
but it keeps you locked in, you know?
Yeah. Yep. What do you think, Scott? Is that enough? We got a little show there.
Yeah, I think so. I've got one more thing. I wanted to give an RIP to my good friend Dave Kalick that we lost this past week. And instead of making it sad, I wanted to tell 2 quick stories about Dave, because Dave was like the coolest guy in the world. He really was. Number one, he was a big metal guy. So I know you didn't know him really well, Ron, but you guys would have connected and you would have talked about metal for, like, he would have gone on with you for hours. Okay. So story number 1 is 2017 when I went out to Los Angeles and I was going to do the Titan Classic or whatever it's called. And I do my depletion workouts at Gold's Gym. And since I only was going to train like 3 times, I think, it was cheaper to get day passes each time I went in than it was to get the week pass. And these things were like $30 per day pass, you know? So I'm paying a day pass every time I come in. And on my last day, Dave was going to meet me there. Dave lived in another part of LA and he was going to drive out and come in and take a look at me and we're going to hang out for a while. So Dave shows up. I'm getting my wallet out and we just walk right in. We don't stop at the counter. The guys at the counter are like, Dave! And everybody in the gym just lights up and is like, hey, what's up, Big Dave? And I was like, oh, wow, when you're with Dave Kalick at Gold's Gym, you don't have to pay. You just walk right through the doors. Wow. You know, and he knows everybody here. So that's story number 1. And we had a good time too. I have a video somewhere. We recorded about like what his plans were with his athletes and stuff, like over in the chair area and stuff that day. But then the other one was 2019, I believe it was, at the Olympia, Meet the Olympians. And I was walking around trying to do like little interviews with people, and Dave was going there. He was like, he was going to go. One of the reasons was because he knew I was going to be there. We're going to be able to connect. So we did that. And I find him when there's like 30 minutes left, and I wasn't able to find Brandon Curry yet. And I was like, oh man, I got to interview Brandon. You know, I know he's going to do good here. I got to talk to Brandon. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll walk with you. So 30 minutes, I couldn't get Dave to move more than 500 feet. We would walk 5 feet, and then somebody at every table, literally, I'm not kidding you, literally everybody at every table stopped Dave because they wanted to say hi to him. He literally knew everybody in the sport. He got backstage at every show, never had a press pass or anything like that. He's backstage at the Olympia, you know, like Dave was at every show, and he was like just the coolest fucking guy, and I'm going to miss him a lot.
Absolutely.
He was cool. He loved bodybuilding. That was the thing. Dave absolutely loved bodybuilding.
You know what's good about Dave from and I didn't know him well, but I knew him from meeting him at Gold's, and something I dislike about bodybuilding. So when I got into motorcycles again, people immediately like rally around. What do you need? Do you have questions? Oh, this guy does this. Like they just like open up their Rolodex for you, and they're like, let's help you do the motorcycle thing.
Yeah. You
know? So, I mean, I am like, I had a little service done at the dealership, and I had a guy I knew, and now I call a friend. He was like, what are you doing? No, you got to call this guy. And now you're saving money. In bodybuilding, they don't do that. A lot of us, and I'm going to say us just because it's fitting, someone new comes in, You don't naturally want to like take him in like you should. When I trained at Gold's Venice in the beginning, I started going in there. He was the first person who I'd never met. He just walked up. How you doing? I'm Dave. Blah blah blah. Let me know if you need anything, or if you want to know where anything is in the gym, because Gold's is big.
Yeah.
And you definitely had to kind of like wander around at first to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I never needed anything from him. I was at that point, he didn't realize this, but I was in there with Chris Cormier. But just the fact that was his attitude, like he knew of me and that was all he needed. Let me know if you need anything. And then you would see him and you realize like, that wasn't me. I wasn't special. That was Dave. That's what he did. You know, oh, this is a new body. But if he didn't know me, he probably would have done the same thing. I don't know you and I own this place. So let me introduce myself, you know, whereas I feel like a lot of something I dislike about bodybuilding is when you go into a gym, particularly if they don't know who you are and you see the big guy, he's immediately bothered that you're there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not here to piss in your sandbox, homie. I just want to use the weights and leave. And I prefer the opposite, which is like, hey, how you doing? Let me know if you need something. You know, it definitely shows who you are better. And that was literally Dave. And like you said, anytime I'd run into him anywhere, the only problem was I'm always like a little bit late, as Ron knows. And I'm like, Dave, you're gonna have to walk with me, bro, because I gotta go. We can't stop to have this conversation, but we can definitely have it.
Yeah, he is one of those people. He loved the sport, and he was really genuine in like helping people and celebrating people. And we sometimes we just talk about bodybuilding, you know, and we talk about, it was cool because I got to see pictures of like Dorian Haywood and stuff these last few years, and Adam, you know, while they were getting ready, and he'd ask me, what do you think of this? What do you think about doing that? Or he'd tell me, you know what, and just, he got so freaking excited. And guys like Stan McQuay, he did such great work, you know, all those people who worked with him, they were also like that same best friend level, you know.
Oh yeah.
He treated everybody like a brother, and he was really cool. And I think you hit something, Dusty, that's what I think should be celebrated in our sport, because there are people like him, and it reminds me that I want to always be that kind of person myself, you know.
Agreed 100.
Well, that was good. I never got to meet him, but I traveled in a lot of the same circles, and I believe I may have met Dave, you know?
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
Many times.
Because as soon as I saw who when, you know, you guys started talking and I looked, I was like, I know this guy, but I don't know this guy, but I know this guy.
Yeah.
I know this guy. This guy was everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, I wish I would have known him more. So, well, great words, fellas. Thanks for another episode of the show. We're happy. It's rolling. And we're good to see that. I'm happy to see the episode that we posted right before the little sleep we took. I'm happy to see that it got a few more thousand views.
Nice.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we kind of got gypped that one. I was upset. I was like,
Well, you know, we did get several thousand views on the YouTube B channel, but I took that down. So there were a lot of people that saw it there. And we need questions, guys. I'm telling you,
more questions. That'd
last 5 minute crew, we need questions.
Yeah, hit us up. So remember, YouTube questions get preference, and also Patreon questions.
Yes.
So Think Big Bodybuilding Patreon. Keep a producer homed. Remember, IamMutant.com, Dusty20, Big Ron 20. Use the codes, guys. Save 20%. Get the Mutant sent right to your door. They ship fast. They are super fast. Get your IsoSurge, get your all in. Everyone should get on the gear. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Absolutely. Otherwise, gentlemen, remember, it's just bodybuilding.